Okay, so we're here at the HEAL Tribe. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Good to see all you guys.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, we got so much problem connecting that I have to go now. I don't have any, I got to get off. So I don't, unless there's something.
You're going to be joining us soon, right, Dr. Fuhrman?
What's that?
You're going to be joining us soon, right?
Not tonight.
No.
What do you mean?
Next month, in the next 2 months, you'll be with us, right?
Absolutely. Enjoy your dinner. Be healthy. And I'll be looking forward to talking to you guys next month, okay?
Thank you, Dr.
Right.
Fuhrman.
Bye, everybody. Take
Say
care.
bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Sorry I can't be there with you. You know what I'll have to do? I'll have to come down there and join you in person next time, okay?
Did you hear that?
All right. Bye-bye.
Come down and join us in person. Yay. Thank you. Have fun
Or
today.
I'll invite you all over to my house. You got to come over to my house for dinner. That's what we'll do. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Let me know. Oh, yeah, he ran out after that one. Did you hear that? Perfect. Oh, I love all the flowers. There you go.
Thank you.
Looks so beautiful.
I'm in my native habitat.
Yes, you are. So, Dr. Weiss.
Flower boy.
Oh, God.
The botanist.
I didn't know that about you, Dr. Weiss. I didn't know you were a ham, but for someone who's vegan, a ham, I don't know. Okay. So I first heard of Dr. Ron Weiss in a documentary, Eating You Alive. His story was so compelling that I invited him to be on the show. And you've been on the show how many times, Dr. Weiss?
A few times, I think.
I think more than 3 times. Yeah. So he bought this huge farm, and he writes prescriptions like broccoli, and he helps people heal, and he has a team. And so we have Asha, Gala, who is, and she can introduce and say what she does, but she's your clinical assistant or clinical manager, is that?
LISA clinical director.
Clinical director, there you go. I don't have my notes right now. I'm winging
That's
this.
okay, no problem.
So many things that could have went wrong, but we're grateful, right? We're grateful that we're here. And then we also have Karina LaMalfa, who is a regular on the Lillian McDermott radio show. She is a certified health and wellness coach. She has a master's degree and has worked very hard last year to get her degree. And now she's a regular on the Lillian McDermott radio show. Say hey, everybody. Say hello.
Hi.
Everybody say hi to them. There you go. Okay. So we're going to get started with Dr. Weiss. Is that what we're going to do? We're going to start with Dr. Weiss?
Yes.
Okay,
I think
here
so.
we go. So can you guys see him? I'm going to put him on speaker view. That way, Dr. Weiss, up. So go ahead and speak, Dr. Weiss.
Hello.
Okay, so
How's that?
go ahead and share your story. Talk about how you got introduced to a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
Yes, well, you know, for pretty all of my life, I always ate a lot of plants, courtesy of my mother. Growing up, always was eating a lot of plants, big salads, a lot of vegetables. They were the center of our eating as I was growing up. You know, I lived at home when I went to college and medical school. When I got home late at night, my standard dinner would be a huge family-sized salad with lots of dark greens, shredded purple cabbage, carrots. Did have olive oil on it, dressing, which Asha and Karina would not approve of, but it did have that. And then a big sweet potato would be sitting in the oven when I'd get home from medical school at 10 o'clock, still warm. And then there'd be a little piece of fish or chicken on the side after I ate like a side of broccoli. So it was really plant-based, but there was small amounts of animal proteins that were scattered through my meals. And I remained like that pretty much for many years. Then my father, after I became a doctor, my father was diagnosed with, all of a sudden with end-stage pancreatic cancer out of the blue. He had abdominal pain 1 week. We took him to Sloan Kettering, and we found that the cancer had replaced most of his liver. and he was given 1 to 3 months to live. I had just graduated from my training, my residency program. I was a newly minted practicing doctor. I had no idea what to do. The doctors at Sloan Kettering just said there was nothing for him really that could help him, and told him to go home and die and get his affairs in order. And so he did. And I was so, I was just so shell-shocked. I went to the public library in town and just started looking through the stack. And I found a book of testimonies from people who had adopted a plant-based diet called a macrobiotic diet. And one of them had a late pancreatic cancer, and I showed it to my father, and this guy had cured himself. Showed this to my father. My father said, let's go. I'm going on a macrobiotic diet. We took him to the world's expert, who was Michio Kushi in Boston. He was evaluated, and my father's life changed within a matter of days. All the symptoms, his pain went away. He was like a different person. He was back in the gym. 2 weeks later, he was back in his law practice. He was a lawyer. He was running 3 weeks later. And I would say about 3 months later, we got a CAT scan showing a 50%, a 30% shrinkage of his tumors. 9 months later, a 50% shrinkage in all of his tumor masses.
Wow.
And yeah, a year later, when he was supposed to have long been dead, we took him back to Sloan Kettering, and the doctors asked him why he, what was he doing there? We took him back just to, you know, to see if there were any new experimental drugs that had come up or chemo, and there wasn't. And the department chairman asked him like what he was doing there because he was shocked to see him. But my father told him he was eating kale and seaweed and brown rice and broccoli. And the doctor lost complete interest in what he was saying. And that was when I knew, because I knew my father wasn't making it up. He had been on no other drugs, and I saw it with my own eyes. I decided to change the way I was going to be a doctor. And that was the beginning for me of whole plant food.
Isn't that amazing stories? Now, Dr. Weiss, I would love for you to share your story. You had said that when you were a third-year student, that you that you were told that to forget about healing patients, and what were you supposed to do?
Yeah. So when kids apply to medical school, they want to be doctors. If you ask a kid who wants to be a doctor, the average kid in college, why are you applying to medical school? And especially when they go on their interviews for admission to medical school, they'll always typically say, because I want to heal. I want to be a healer. I want to relieve people from suffering and disease. And the odd thing Lillian is referring to is when I was, so medical school is divided into two distinct portions. The first 2 years, you just do a lot of book learning. You know, you're in the library, you're looking at books, dead bodies, cutting them open, dissection. Second 2 years, that's when you're actually unleashed into the hospital. You're dealing with real patients. So when we were preparing to enter our beginning of our third year to see real patients, I distinctly remember at my medical school that a professor came into the huge lecture hall to get us ready for this experience of actually taking care of patients. And he said something I will never forget. I was sitting in the back of the lecture hall, maybe dozing off, I don't know. But I do remember this. He said, I have some news for you. And I remember because it was so startling to me. You know, doctors don't cure really much of anything. If you think about it, everything you've learned here for the past 2 years in the books, like how to use drugs and procedures, and if you think about it, we're not able to cure much of anything other than most infections, right? Because we have antibiotics. You can make most infections go away with the antibiotics, and some cancers. You know, once you can cut out some cancers, you can sometimes, if you get them early enough, once in a while chemo does work, not that often. But he said everything else you've been learning about: high blood pressure, kidney failure, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, Alzheimer's. The list just went on and on. Glaucoma, acne. He said, your job, what you're going to learn for these next 2 years is you're going to be a disease manager. Doctors manage diseases with medications. And we really can't relieve the patients of the disease, but we can stabilize them and maybe make them feel somewhat better with the drugs. And I remember feeling crestfallen because I didn't really, I did not think I was signing up for that. And what happened is I went through my last 2 years of medical school, and surely enough, that's what it was about. And so you can imagine my amazement when I found whole plant foods.
Okay, I think we're losing you, Dr.
Realize and chooses too. I'll even. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're hearing you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I'm sorry about that, Dr. Weiss. I really appreciate your story and for sharing that. Now, today, as we get started, we are talking about the fact that it's a new year, and many of us have had eaten a certain way during the holidays, and we need to get back on track. So one of the things that I want to encourage is a detox before anybody does a juice cleanse or water fast or anything like that. We need to get our bodies ready. And so Dr. Ron Weiss has been working on a detox for his patients. Tell a little bit about how food is medicine and what you're about at the farm.
Okay, well, so, I've been through a long road in my professional life, and a few years ago, I had a very successful community practice where we treated everyone from newborn babies to 105-year-old people visiting them at home. And because of the kind of collapse of our health care system, this little medical center became unsustainable. So I had to leave this medical center. It was sold off. And we took what we got from this medical center and bought a very old and dilapidated farm. Have any of you ever seen Green Acres? Yeah. Something like that. So my wife was not that excited about it, but it came to pass. And why a farm? What does that have to be doing with being a doctor? Well, I think probably if you know Lillian, you know she's all about healthy eating, and where does food come from, right? It comes from a farm. Yeah. And we had the idea early on that food, the healthiest food, just can't be grown any old way. It has to be grown really specifically in order for it to be healthy for human beings, have the highest level of nutrients, and also be healthy for our water, the soil, the air, and the trees and everything that surrounds us. So our farm really is a big project of health. We farm so that we make the world and the planet healthier, and our surroundings and human beings who come there. And that's why we call it Ethos Health. Everything we do on the farm is directed towards improving human health and the health of everything around us and our surroundings. So today in that farm, we have a primary care practice where we take care of people from all over the country. And it's right in the middle of the growing fields. And Asha is our lifestyle director. She is in charge of ministering to people and helping them actually to change the way they live. I'm, how they should do it. And then Karina is our wonderful chef. And Karina is also coaches and brings along each of these patients and works hand to hand with them and helps them to implement all of these great plans. And we do that in this little farmhand's house, right in the middle of the growing field.
Beautiful, I've been there.
Yeah.
So what is your idea of a 30-day fast, or tell us about detoxing the body? What is your idea and how did you come up with your model?
Well, yes. So, I'm kind of an aggressive, as Asha will tell you, my eyes are always bigger than my stomach, right? I always try to do too much, more than I can possibly do. And so when I decided to start practicing like this, I thought all patients should be extreme and should go like 100 miles an hour from the first day. There are two philosophies of adopting a new diet of plant-based whole foods. One is kind of leaning into it little by little. And then the other philosophy is stripping naked, ripping off all your clothes, and running down the street with broccoli in your mouth. I chose the latter. And so the first way I started to treat patients in my old practice in Hudson County was with this 30-day, I called it the challenge, to challenge somebody. And it's really strict. And it's very stripped down to basically just very essential, high nutrient food. And the reason why we do that is because it's very stark.
Okay.
But the pain that could.
Dr. Weiss, you may need
Yes.
to get closer to your modem. Just saying.
Really?
You're choppy and pixelating, and your voice is, yeah. So give us another tour of your house.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, where my modem is dark.
You're good now.
Yeah. Okay.
So can you tell us the principle of other than running down the street naked with broccoli in your mouth, what else do you do?
So we like this 30-day detox because it is very stark. It sort of isolates the person from access to possible things that could, in the regular world that we live in, that could derail them. Because they kind of have to take like an oath to start this, an oath in some ways. And we use this 30-day period to instill practices of mindfulness. And I think probably Asha could probably speak to how the mindful aspects of what we do when we become very humble and adopt something that is so simple and direct, like the 30-day challenge foods. Asha?
So I didn't realize I had muted myself. Yeah, hi everybody. Hello. So mindfulness, it's truly, the way Dr. Weiss said, the latter way of just, putting your broccoli into your mouth, it's a crazy idea. But I think once you do it, it kind of, you really figure out that, oh, this is what I was supposed to be having. It is a whole, your whole view of food changes at the end. You begin with feeling absolutely painful, not liking it, and I think Karina will go more into detail because she's experienced it. But by the end, your mindset just, you turn almost 360, that you could survive just with few foods. And it's a beautiful feeling, the whole, and I think that's what Dr. Weiss, unknowingly, when you started it, you did not realize that there was a piece of mindfulness with it.
I didn't. And what I learned from you, Asha, is there is mindfulness all about us. There's things to be mindful about everywhere. We just have to open our eyes to see them. And that's the beautiful thing about the 30-day detox. When you enter it, basically what you are the person who does it is looking at very little to eat, it seems from the outset, right? It's 6 different kinds of dark cruciferous greens, 3 starches, fruits, and water, and flaxseed, 64 ounces of water. That's it. That's all you can have for a month. But by the end, you realize that these foods have changed your taste buds, right? They change the way you think. They change the way you're tasting things. They actually change your saliva, proteins in your saliva on a molecular basis. So they do all kinds of things. Yeah. I mean, Karina, maybe you can talk about it because you've actually done it.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Hi, everybody. I'm Karina. I work at Ethos. This is a large part of our entire team. I'm very grateful to be working at such a beautiful and holistic place. The greatest thing for me about the 30-day detox, and when we present it to our patients, is that we are taking the power from outside of people and we're giving it right back to the person. So I was able to change stories I had heard or that I was telling myself about my genetic cholesterol level, let's say, or heart disease that I was potentially going to get because everyone in my family had it, or high blood sugar by the time I was 70. These were things that I probably expected to have, aches and pains of arthritis as well. And by doing the detox and then following the program that Dr. Weiss gave me afterwards, and Asha, I was able to take responsibility and to take control of my health. So that was really, really, really exciting. And as Dr. Weiss said, there are not that many foods that you eat for a month. I remember Asha saying it's a little bit like a food vacation. You're not cooking as much. You're eating plain foods, mostly raw, sometimes cooked, and a lot of fruit and a lot of water. And in the very beginning, it really is a journey. In the first stage, most people, or I did anyway, I felt deprived. I felt like I was missing out on some things that I was used to doing with other people or used to eating. So what helped me the most was really coming up with ironclad goals. I think I had 4 goals: reduce my cholesterol, reduce my stress, sleep better, reduce my visceral fat, and increase my energy. So as I progressed through the first week, I had those things on a note card. By the second and third week, the food is just boring. But the amazing thing that's happening is that your taste buds are changing. So suddenly the foods I was eating were tasting very, very sweet and very, very delicious. And I was no longer craving things that I had always craved my entire life: bread, desserts. I remember one patient telling me, when you're done with that 30-day detox and you're in a restaurant and they roll that dessert cart past you, you won't even look. I said, well, that's impossible. I'm going to look, I'm going to drool, I'm going to want it. But she was 100% right. By the end of the 30 days, I was appreciating the tastes of the pure foods with no seasonings, no added anything, and I was truly enjoying that aspect. That being said, we know at Ethos that when we tell people to make behavioral changes, it's difficult to do many things at once. So sometimes we let people just focus on the food and some gentle movement and maybe some mindfulness in the very beginning. And then the rest of our education program will bring the other changes later.
So what are some of the foods you can have?
Some of the foods you can't have. It's probably easier to list again the foods we do have.
What can you have?
What can you have? Thank you. As Dr. Weiss said, there are several starches that you can choose from. There are several types of greens. and you're eating a lot of those every day. There's a lot of water, up to 64 ounces or more. Flaxseed, and thank goodness there's a lot of fruit.
So can you tell a story about a transformation?
Would anyone like to tell a story about a client or patient transformation?
Yeah.
We have a very someone who is in the process of doing it right now, who recommend the 30-day detox for two kinds of people. Just anyone who either wants to be inspired by how quickly they can change, even if you're not really sick, but even if you have a blood pressure of 120 over 80, and then you want to see within 4 weeks if it can be 100 over 60, or if you're not, or if you think you're of a good weight, but you're not actually the thinnest you could be. So just for average people who don't really have severe problems, but we also find it useful for people who are really sick, because if you're really sick, we see some of the greatest and most dramatic turnarounds, who basically, who are currently is in the program, who has had, imagine having severe abdominal pains, and she's now in her early 30s, since childhood, nonstop, like since the age of 10 or 11 years old, has been through, has had operations to try and figure out exploratory surgeries, has been treated for endometriosis, which she may or may have not had, has taken all kinds of drugs. And, it's been going on, let's see, for 20 years, every day of her life, and she's been burdened by this severe pain. The diagnosis in a doctor's world is called chronic abdominal pain. And it is, when you have a patient who comes into your office with that diagnosis, it's a nightmare, because it means every colonoscopy, every CAT scan, every blood test, liver test, the GI doctor, everyone has had their hands on this patient, the gynecologist. They've looked for gynecological problems, done pelvic exams, ultrasounds, liver ultrasounds. Nobody can find any problems. So you can imagine, after all of these years, within a few days of beginning the detox, all of her abdominal pains vanished. She is now nearing the end. They have not been back. Wow. I believe on maybe the third day, they're gone after all these years. So that's an example of this very obstinate diagnosis, chronic abdominal pain, which, just completely vanish.
Thank you. Can you, is there a particular order of what people should eat? Like anyway, Anya, Asha, I'm sorry, Asha.
Yes, that's okay.
Sorry, I have the plates that you requested.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Are we ready for that?
Are you guys ready for that? Are you guys, as in Ethos Health, also ready to do this?
We are.
Yes. So what we're going to start with is, I just want to kind of also talk, as Dr. Weiss asked me earlier about the mindfulness, and I want to reiterate that the whole, I'm just learning. I've just started learning, I can say, and I think it's an amazing, amazing, I'm grateful that this has become a, new part of my life. It is basically, each of us have it within us. We just have to find it. This mindfulness is about living our lives moment to moment. It is about challenges we face, day in, day out. We all face the challenges, the choices we are making, the places we are going, the work we're doing. They all become occasions for opening to this mindfulness. and it actually brings us closer to how we are living our lives. So that's what the basic essence of mindfulness is. What I will do is we'll do a little experiment, and how is it ever connected to our eating? How can we bring, because mindfulness is connected to so many ways of our life. We're just going to do a tiny experiment how it can be connected to our eating, because it's all about, are we really fully paying attention to how we're eating? And in this way, I think many of you have heard that one of the techniques to get closer to mindfulness is meditation. How many of you have heard about meditation?
Okay, so can you see everything?
All, probably.
Okay, raise your hand.
Yay! And do you guys enjoy practicing it? Do you guys enjoy practicing it?
Yes, especially at night.
Yep. Great. And I feel like, for me, when I first started meditation, I realized the more practice I did, the better I got at it. So that is the challenge I'm facing right now. I'm not, I want to continue it, but I can see that that's the big thing, that one we all have to get to the bottom to. So we're ready for this experiment. The reason we chose, can you look at your plate? Yay! Thank you. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate Lillian for this last minute. It just popped in, and then I just sent her, and she's amazing. She put this together. So each of you, you see in your plate, there are a couple of leaves. There is a piece of a fruit, and then there is a chip, right? I'm hoping that that's what everybody has. And just let's look at it. Well, we're going to do it. I mean, it's okay if you don't look at the screen for now. I'll try to yell and scream so you all can listen to me. But let's focus on this plate that is in front of us. And we'll see, and let's take a couple of breaths before we do. We're going to do a little bit tasting, and it's very critical. Please follow the instructions, especially if I say just one bite or, chew slowly. If you can listen to that, you will have a great experience, and you'll get the feeling of what we are talking about, getting closer to this mindfulness and connecting eating to it. So let's look at first,
Before you get
sorry.
started, does everybody know how to breathe in this room? Seriously. Does everybody know how to breathe in this room? I had to go to a therapist to learn how to breathe again. Because most of us breathe from our chest. So if you're breathing and you're seeing your chest go up and down, you are not breathing. That's why anxiety happens, and that's why different things. So if your chest is getting really big, you're not doing it right. It's from here. So I want you to breathe through your nose, and when you bring the air, just visualize it going all the way to your abdomen and your stomach. That's why singers have a pooch. That's why we have a pooch, because we sing when we take a breath, our stomach pops out. So that is real breathing. Okay, what was that all about?
I'm a singer.
Okay, so that's
why.
The only time I was proud of my stomach was when I was pregnant. Like, hey, look at this. Okay, so this is what it's when a lot of people start doing this thing, and that's not breathing. So if you suffer from anxiety or depression, just know that breath will center you and ground you. So I want us to practice before we get started on the meditation. I apologize here.
No, that's fine.
I want us to all breathe in, and I want you to put your hand over your diaphragm, which is right about here. That's right. And when you come in, breathe in, this is going to pop out, and when you breathe out, it's going to go in like an accordion. Your rib cage is going to expand on the side as well. So just try it a couple of times. Do you feel the difference? People smoke. Any smokers in this room that will admit it? People who smoke are breathing through their diaphragm. And that's what calms them down. And of course, now they're addicted to the nicotine, that's another story. But when you are breathing, make sure this doesn't go up and that you just breathe from yourself. Got it? Good? There you go.
Thank you. No, and Lillian, that was extremely helpful. That was a good thing that she brought to our attention about the breathing. So we'll definitely take a couple of breaths. Let's take a couple of breaths, breathing in, breathing out. And the first food that we're going to we can take half of the leaves that you have. Just pick up half. If you have 4 leaves, just pick 2 leaves. If you have 2 leaves, just pick 1. And let's observe it first. Let's look at it, the texture, right? The color. Let's smell it, right? Okay. And then I want you to, yay, yes, let's just feel it. And let's slowly put it into our mouth and chew that first bite. Chew very slowly. You're crushing those leaves. There's a burst of juice probably. Some of us might like it. Some of us might feel like, the flavor. Keep at it. Keep focusing. Chew. If you need to close your eyes and keep chewing it very slowly. You're mushing it. It's, you're crushing it further. And as you crush it further and further, you're going to then slowly swallow it. And if you still are taking longer time to chew, it's okay. That it'll actually, a lot of time, that's what the greens always do, take a long time to chew. It's okay. Chew on it slowly. Those cells are bursting. Those amazing cells. Think about the place that it grew, where it came from. And that's it. We'll take a couple of more breaths. We'll probably, there's still some flavor, of this in your mouth. We'll try our best to wash it up, take a couple more breaths. And now we can choose a food that you think is healthy on your plate. The next food that you can choose is a fruit. So most of you, I think it's a fruit. Am I correct? Yep. We can pick that. We can hold it. Or if you have a spoon or a fork, whatever, smell it. Yep. Thank you. The texture, it has a texture to it. It might be a little different from the greens. And then we'll slowly put into our mouth. And how is it getting crushed? Is it quicker? Is it slower? Is it mushier? Is there a sudden change? There's a different flavor. There was a different flavor when you crushed the greens versus a different flavor now. And I want you to, take a couple of breaths and breathe in, breathe out, chew slowly, and just continue experiencing the flavor that this is giving. And as you completely, chew, I want you to take a couple of moments, can you remember the spinach flavor, or it's slowly moving away? It's slowly going away because some other flavor is empowering it now. Slowly and steadily, there's another flavor that is over the spinach flavor.
Yes.
And now we have another last, I wouldn't say a last, there would be the next piece that we might think, some of us might think that this might be not as healthy as our previous food. So we will take that, let's touch it, let's touch our third food, and let's smell it, yep. And then slowly and steadily, yes, the chip. And slowly, let's bite into it. Let's chew on it slowly. The first bite, was there a burst or there could be different ways how you're going to start feeling. It is, you know, you will see that slowly the spinach flavor is far gone because there was a fruit flavor, and now the fruit flavor has been taken over by this new crunch, right? There's a crunch sound. And then slow and steadily chew on it and swallow.
Unfortunately, we can't do this very long because it's a processed chip. So we're done chewing.
Yes. And I thank you for bringing it up because I am going to ask a lot of questions on, you know, which was the food that was the quickest to chew it versus, you know, we'll go through all of those feelings. And then that's it, you know, it's all cleaned up. You know, hopefully it's down, you know, it's kind of changed how you feel. I don't know, can any of you remember the spinach flavor anymore or the fruit flavor? Let's try our best. See if you can feel it, or what is empowering, what flavor is really taken over. Now we take the last food, the spinach that should be still on there, right? And, you know, we'll take these leaves, we will, you know, and then we'll slowly put into our mouth and chew slowly. I know it's not as crunchy anymore, maybe not as salty, or spinach is a little bit salty, but I'm sure there is a change in how we feel. And what we're going to do is, I would like each and every one, if you guys can, we're going to go around, Lillian, if it's okay, for people to share their experience on this food tasting that they went through right from beginning until the end. I would like to know, in, you know, as short as possible, as long, however they want to describe the experience.
Okay, so that's what I'll do. For those of you who would like to raise your hand, and I'll point the mic or the camera at you.
Who would like to share their experience?
Diane?
I noticed with the spinach, for me, when I ate it the first time, it actually tasted a lot better than I thought spinach tasted. I mean, I eat spinach all the time, but it's usually, you know, you don't really take the time to experience it. And I was surprised how much I liked it that way. But then when I ate it at the very end, I was surprised that the taste changed, and I didn't like it as much.
Yeah.
Anybody agree to
So
that's what you experienced, show of hand, that's experienced that. Yeah. I did too. So I'm raising my hand too. Anybody else like to share their experience?
I just wanted another banana.
You want another banana? I got some more banana.
Oh boy. All right. Anybody else wants to share? We can take a couple more shares before I, you know, kind of go over.
Yeah, it was very similar with the spinach and the banana just kind of like dissolved in your mouth, and it kind of, the sweetness kind of took over and everything.
Yeah,
so,
we're geared towards sweetness, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes. Anybody else like to share?
I was going to say that the flavors were more pronounced. I eat spinach all the time. I eat bananas and chips. But with this exercise, I could really taste the sweetness of the banana and the saltiness of the pepper chip. So it's very good.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else like to share? Martin?
Well, what I really love is the banana flavor, is because they brought the sweetening in the text, little mushy, and it's quite, you know, I really like it, the sweetening.
You like the sweet?
Yeah.
So what does that say about us that we really like the sweet?
Yeah. So, you know, it's one of the things I wanted to, what do we all do? How many of you have eaten like this? Like slowly, how many of you have eaten so slowly, you know? So one of...
Is this the slowest you've ever eaten? Yeah. Okay, so we all agree that this is the slowest we've all ever eaten.
Yes. And the thing is, when we did this slow way of eating, each of us, what did we do? We were observing moment to moment, right? the feelings that were arising, we were experiencing, we all were mindful. Each and every one of us are mindful. It's just that we have to find it. We have to find this within ourselves. And this experiment brought about that whole mindfulness. And it highlighted how our flavors taste. I love the way beautifully you said, oh, I never realized the spinach can taste so good for the first time. Because of the first time, you tasted it, mindfully, but then the whole flavor changed because it was overpowered for different flavors. And this is what we are battling. This is the thing that we're battling today, is how our food has changed. We don't grow chips on the trees. We were born with all of these mechanics of our body to be surviving thousands of years ago with leaves, And we are tricking our brains here, and then our brains are getting tricked, and that's why it's so hard to give up that chip. It is so hard to like that spinach after that crunch of that chip. I would be in the same shoes. When I figured that out, this exercise, I did it on myself, and I said, this is the reason why it takes us forever to really, the cravings that we all have, it's really hard to. And if each of us can bring mindfulness into our lives, I think we will be able to overcome, So that's why at Ethos, as Dr. Weiss said beautifully, this is what is a big piece of our, teachings and education. Yes, Dr. Weiss.
And Asha, I think the point of the 30-day challenge or the 30-day detox is it over 30 days, it does what you just did within 2 minutes here. It basically strips everything away, and it makes the person pay attention. Just like you good people paid attention during this few minutes with Asha.
2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, or 5 minutes, whatever it was. You have no choice but to pay attention to these dark greens, that sweet potato, that simple starch, that fruit, and that water. There is not a grain of salt. There is no tea. There are no other flavors that are coming in. It is just these simple things. So I love the way you explained it so well, that basically gave such a good experience of how to be mindful and aware of. There's just these 3 simple things, right? A leaf, a slice of banana, and a chip.
Okay,
And it basically all comes down to that.
I want to pull. Is this the slowest you've ever eaten? Who sits and eats like this? How many of us sit?
I don't think I can hear Lillian.
Oh, you can't hear?
How many of
I
us?
can hear Lillian.
Okay,
Sorry.
we can hear you, Lillian. For a minute there, we lost you.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So with a show of hands, how many of us, and I'll raise my hand, sit in front of the computer or sit in front of the television and eat?
I've done that. I raised my hand too.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay. So can you give us some tips on what we can do for eating? So that's my question. If you guys think of a question, let me know, and then you can stand up and I can put the camera to you so that you can ask your question. Okay, so
Yeah.
here's some tips on
So Lillian, one of the things that we at Ethos insist, we request our patients at least 1 meal per week. All we're asking is 1 meal per week. If you can take it all by yourself in any place that you enjoy the most, it could be by your desk, it could be in the passage, it could be in your deck, it could be among, wherever you think you can. And do the way you ate today, eat slowly, mindfully. I think that whole experience, that 30 or 40 minutes when our patients do it regularly, it brings them back, it connects them back to the whole reasons why the mindfulness is important. So if you guys can put this into practice just once a week for any 1 meal.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let me get the mic.
I can't hear the question. I don't know.
It wasn't the mindful eating exactly, but it was you mentioned there was 6 different kind of greens, dark greens. Is it possible to be more specific on those dark greens? Because I'm kind of new to all this.
Sure, Dr. Weiss or Karina, one of you whoever wants to go.
LaMalfa question.
Well, what I would like to say is that we do it as a medically supervised diet. So what you get at Ethos when you choose your greens and you choose your starches, that you get to work one-on-one with Dr. Weiss to make those decisions. I know for me, I eat a lot of dark leafy greens, and at least every day in a large amount, whether I was on the detox or now going forward. And there are a lot of reasons for the phytonutrients and the vitamins and minerals that are in those, and they work wonders as a medicine, and they work quickly. So before anyone tackles some of these changes, please see your healthcare provider. Dr. Weiss, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think you answered it pretty well. You know, we mentioned before that we take cruciferous greens, and you know, we pick the ones that are highest in nutrient density, which are the kales and the collards and the watercresses and the, you know, we also throw arugula in there. You know, mustard greens, because they have the most medicines in them. And then sometimes we add a couple of other things depending on patients' medical problems. We can customize it, but that's the basis of it.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so Karina, let's talk about some nice whole food plant-based recipes that you can leave with us. As you're coming off the fast, what do you do?
As you're coming off the fast, yeah. So you're appreciating the tastes of foods. Most of our people are enjoying still eating the single food with no seasoning. But as they come to me for the next 8 weeks, we work on adding in all of the steamed vegetables and raw vegetables that they would enjoy, as well as adding in some important seasonings like fresh spices and dried spices. And then everyone's very happy when they can add in garlic and onion and tomato, because that is basically the beginning of many wonderful soups. So we have I usually encourage people to stick to 4 or 5 ingredient soups, like mushroom soups, tomato pepper, perhaps butternut squash soups. Heavy on the seasonings because, again, that's another form of medicine. So we start with simple soups and stews, and then we move on from there. But the amazing thing is how often people will tell me that they still really enjoy the singular foods that they ate on the detox for a long time.
So do you just eat one food every week or one food at a time? How do you eat that?
You're continually adding. So as you're coming back to eating a full whole food plant-based diet, salt, oil, and sugar-free, every week you add a few foods back in every category.
But as you get started in the detox, you just eat vegetables one week, or you eat the same foods every day?
All of the categories that Dr. Weiss mentioned, you eat some combination of those every day.
Okay. Okay, so anybody else have it? Okay, come over here. I know you'll stand up and do it.
Yes, I'm standing. My question would be for the person that has always had texture problems their entire life, didn't grow up eating veggies. What kind of success have you had for people even entering detox when they can't even look at the green? I'm curious about that. Like, how would you get somebody that has those kind of problems where they didn't grow up with a salad ever in their house, how would you get them to even enter that detox?
Do you want me to take this one?
Thank you.
So there are a couple of ways, and I'm sure all three of us have different answers, but one of the ways that I've done it is I've had people pair the food that they don't like with the food that they do like. So let's say they're very fond of apples or bananas and they're not fond of baby kale. So we're going to pair what they know and what they like, and they may in the beginning do a bite of apple followed by 4 bites of kale, and then a bite of apple, 4 bites of kale. Usually by the end of the detox, they're enjoying it. They've built up a flavor profile that supports that. Another thing that we've noticed is that chopping food finely changes the flavor. So if you are not a fan of spinach or baby kale, but if you chop it and add to it some other foods, again, that you do like that are on the plan, you will have a better time tolerating it. The natural sweetness of the food comes out when in a finer dice.
And Karina, that does not include chopping chocolate with your broccoli.
We recommend not chopping chocolate with the broccoli.
You know, the other thing,
Go ahead, sorry.
the other thing that I mentioned before, which relates to what Karina said, is that, you know, obviously, you know, most people don't have a problem eating fruit or drinking water. Public enemy number one is those dark greens. And so, you know, we have science now that shows that if you can just hang in there long enough, your saliva does change. Protein molecules in your saliva change so that actually your taste buds seem to sense that these greens are sweeter and they lose their bitterness, their bitter qualities. It actually happens. So, you know, we often, it's not uncommon that we'll have people coming in the beginning who say, I was going to vomit. I just couldn't eat it. And at the end, they'll say, I like this now. And I think a lot of it has to do with the science of what I just said, but also the restrictions and actually the mindfulness that they employed to actually appreciate these gifts.
Very good, thank you. And what about you, Asha?
I just wanted to add a little bit to that, you know, they of course covered everything beautifully. They covered a tiny piece that, you know, does encourage a lot of people would be immersed in the education. You know, if you know, pick up a book or anything that can emphasize why you have to do it, learn. You know, one of the books that we always encourage is The Pleasure Trap. A lot of time when you gain the correct knowledge, it's almost like you prepare yourself. So then it's like if you did what Karina is saying and you read the book and you have patience, as Dr. Weiss says, over a period of time, your taste buds will change. All of this will come together and it will work for you, my dear. So I don't, you know, it'll work.
Hunger. How much greens can you have? Is there a limit? Or you just drink water when you're hungry and cry all night? Just saying.
So the good thing about the 30-day challenge or detox is that we promise you will never be hungry, right? Because when people go on diets of eating foods that they don't like, that's the primary complaint, that I don't have anything to eat, I'm going to be hungry. There are unlimited amounts of starches and fruits that you can eat. You can eat as much as you want. So there's no fear of being hungry. And again, you have to eat a lot of those greens.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so tell us about Ethos Health. Who would like to talk about Ethos Health, where you are, and how much this, about your detox program? How do you sign up? How do you get involved?
Is there a cost?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a cost. Yeah, it's for free, isn't it? No.
I I would like Dr. Weiss also to kind of share. I wanted to just say that for many who, there are two ways we have kind of over the experiences that we've gone through and the patients that have had successes, we've formulated it into two ways. One is an individualized one and one is a group one. And we are really in a fantastic, I'm always amazed at the technology that we are in. And Dr. Weiss has, a telemedicine abilities now because he is working towards licensing in many states. So through our group detox, I think we would be able to reach a lot of people that are not necessarily able to come to our farm. So I just wanted to throw that piece in there.
So, but the cost, they want to know the cost. They're in New Jersey. They're in New Jersey. Sure.
Yep.
So the farm is in New Jersey. It's 350 acres, right? Where in New Jersey?
342.196.
And where in New Jersey?
It's about an hour west of Manhattan.
What's the town?
It's in Long Valley, New Jersey, in Morris County. For those of you who are familiar with Morristown, it's right around 25 minutes down the road from Morristown.
Okay.
And for more information, you can visit us on the web at www.ethoshealth.org. And there's a lot of information on there, and you can see our approach and just get a flavor for the types of programs that we offer and the types of free programs and seminars that we have on Saturdays. We have monthly potlucks because success is really driven by our ability to connect as a tribe, just as you all have a tribe tonight. And thank you for inviting us to join you. It's important to have people with you on this path. In your house is great. Friends and family, even better. Strangers, perfect as well. So we have monthly potlucks at no cost. Everyone just brings a dish to share. And if you're in the area, please check our schedule and join us.
Thank you. Well, let's say thank you to Dr. Ron Weiss, Asha, and Karina LaMalfa. And again, you can find Karina once or twice a month, once a month. You can listen to Dr. Ron Weiss's podcast or when he was on the show as well. Every time they're on the show, it's very informative. So thank you so much for giving up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.